This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to replace professional medical advice or be a substitute for therapy. Please contact a mental health professional as needed. If you are in need of urgent or emergency health care, please contact your medical and or mental health provider, call 911, or go to your nearest emergency room. The information presented in this podcast does not reflect the opinions of those with whom Dr. Ellick might be affiliated as an employee, consultant, or colleague, past or present. Hello, and welcome to another episode of From Mayhem to Mindset with Dr. Laura. I am your host, Dr. Laura Ellick, and we are tackling a topic today that is near and dear to me. This is about becoming a psychologist. So I have people ask me frequently, how did you decide to become a psychologist? And do you like what you do? And do you think it was worth it? And so I'm going to talk to you today as a professional, but also I'm hoping to reach out to people who may be considering going into this field or who have no idea what this field is like and may have some misconceptions about what it's like to be a psychologist. It sounds great. And would I do it again? I don't know. You're going to find out the answer at the end of the episode. So let's talk a little bit just about how in-demand psychologists are. So according to psychology.org, there are some very in-demand psychology jobs, and they're projected to increase by as much as 18% between 2022 and 2032. Now, that 18% average is 5 times the national average. So we're going to have an 18% growth, which is 5 times the national average of growth in a particular career field. They're psychology jobs, but not necessarily jobs that are held by psychologists, and there's a difference. So the big careers are substance abuse, which I'm sure to most people would not be a surprise if you are listening to the media and what they talk about, how we're in a substance abuse crisis, the opioid addiction crisis, all of those things, fentanyl, mental health counselors, grief counselors, sexual assault counselors, marriage and family counselors. So the field of counseling is really going up. And I have a feeling that part of that has to do with the backlash or the after effects of COVID that we are still seeing. The anxiety that came out of 2020, the anxiety that people are reporting about the election in 2020, in 2024, all of that stuff, the hate that came out in our country, people are still recovering from all of that. According to Statista, there are, as of 2007, there were 75,700 active psychologists in the United States, which, by the way, is a lot less than I thought. But I think I just happen to have lived in areas where psychologists tend to congregate. There are a lot of psychologists in New York City, in South Florida. There are a tremendous number of psychologists and mental health professionals. However, that amount grew between 75,700 to 117,780 psychologists in 2021. So that's a pretty big number. So let's kind of get real here about what the education is like, what the field is like, and is this something that you may actually see yourself doing in the future? One of the things that I know for myself is I knew from a very early age, probably around high school, I knew that I was going to be pursuing higher education, and that higher education was likely going to require a graduate degree, even though at the time I had no idea what graduate degree I was going to go for. I just knew that I valued education quite a bit, and I knew that that was going to be in my future. It wasn't until I went to college, however, and I started studying psychology that I really realized that this was the career for me and the job that I wanted to do. And I was actually torn for quite a while because for some people who don't know, I double majored. I double majored in psychology and Spanish. And along with Spanish, I studied multiple languages. So I studied Spanish, I studied French, I studied Portuguese. So my family thought and other people thought that was probably what I was going to wind up doing for a career, something involving languages. And here's where the world, the universe, whatever you want to call it, is kind of funny. There's always, a fork in the road. And like the great Yogi Berra once said, when you see a fork in the road, you take it. Right? Ha ha, funny joke. But there was a fork in the road for me. So what most people don't know is that it is harder to get into graduate school for psychology, for a PhD in psychology, than in med school. And that's because the numbers that they accept to graduate school in psychology is very small. In my class, I had seven people. I think we started with 9 and 2 dropped out. So I wound up having 7 people in my PhD graduating class. Most people don't know that. So I came to a point in time where I had worked super, super hard in high school. I had worked incredibly hard in college to do the GREs, to get the great GPA, to do the volunteer work, to do everything. And when I was applying for graduate school, even my department chairperson in psychology said, and this is how he said it too, it's likely that you're not going to get in. So you probably should, pick something else or just go for a master's degree instead, which really, to be honest with you, kind of pissed me off. I had spent all of this time working so hard. And this was the first indication that I had gotten that I might not be able to achieve my dreams. So that's why I'm here for everyone today, is to kind of be your big sister, your mother maybe. I don't want to say that, but okay, I'm old enough probably to be your mother, to talk to you about the ins and outs about what they don't tell you about graduate school in psychology. So number one, it is incredibly difficult to get into. You have to have stellar grades. You have to have, obviously, a good education. Don't even bother applying if you don't have any experience in the field, which is bizarre because how are you supposed to get experience without having a degree? Because you need a license to practice psychology. So I did all kinds of other things to try to get experience in the field. I volunteered at a substance and mental health abuse clinic, just taking attendance, sitting in on groups. I did everything that I could do. And then I had my department chairperson still say, you likely are not going to get in. So then I panicked. So I'm a senior in college, put all my applications in. I'm hearing that I'm likely not going to get in. What am I going to do after? And so that was the point for me where I had a backup plan from my department chairperson in Spanish, who passed away a few years after I graduated from college. And he was an amazing, amazing man. And he said, if you want to go to graduate school in Spanish, we will get you into the University of New Mexico. So there was my decision point, is like, what do I do? I love both of these equally. However, as the story goes, I'm sitting here as a psychologist, so I can tell you that I did get in to graduate school in psychology, and that was the beginning of a journey where I would look back on it and I would have to say, honestly, I don't think I would do it again. Or if I did decide to do it again, I wouldn't do it without being way more educated about what the process actually entails and what your lifestyle is going to be as a psychologist. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the obvious pros of becoming a psychologist. Number one, obviously, people who go into this field want to help others. You have to have some sort of desire to be of use to other people. So number one, that we can check that box. If you're even interested in becoming a helper, something in the helper profession, you have to want to help people. So that's fine. That was like a no-brainer to me. Like I knew I wanted to do something in the field. I also knew that I was going to go for the highest degree possible, a PhD, because I knew it was going to be intellectually stimulating. So I can tell you from the get-go that part of me was definitely satisfied. Even today, working as a psychologist, I am incredibly intellectually stimulated. I am surrounded by so many smart people, not all of whom are psychologists, by the way. But I'm surrounded by so many treatment professionals who are brilliant, who are doing amazing things, who are making a difference in other people's lives. And that, to me, That keeps my brain churning. I love reading everything there is to know about the field. So for me, this is a field that is ever growing. And the PhD was incredibly intellectually stimulating. Now, what's the difference between a PhD, let's say, and a PsyD, and why did I choose to go the PhD route? At the time that I decided to go to graduate school, the PsyD was a very new degree. Not too many people knew about it, and not too many programs actually offered it. And we weren't exactly sure at the time where it was going to go. And so, number one, I wanted to take the safer route. There were more programs that offered PhDs than PsyDs. I didn't know if the PsyD degree was going to survive, which it has. It's survived and it's grown. And the other thing was, in a PhD program, you get specific focus on being able to conduct and read research. And so, as you guys may know, if you followed my podcast, followed me on other podcasts, I'm a data nerd. I love the science. I don't like conducting the research. I do like reading the research, and I do like seeing what's out there and seeing what the new data says. So I knew going into it that a program was going to definitely intellectually satisfy me. It was going to be rigorous, and I have to say, it absolutely was rigorous. Another pro, there's the potential for autonomy. How many people are going into psychology or, other mental health type professions, substance abuse counseling, but for psychology, one of the things that was so cool to me was I thought I could make my own hours. So my goal was to be able to maybe work in a hospital part-time, have a part-time private practice, and then still have plenty of time left over for family, for kids, for all of my hobbies. I wanted to have an office that was all mine, that I could take breaks during the day and go for a walk or go to the beach or watch the sunrise or set. I had very, very big goals for what I thought this career was going to be. And then, of course, there is the potential for job growth. So I thought, well, let me say not job growth per se, but the number of jobs that you could potentially do. So you could do research, you could be a clinician, you could teach, you could work in a hospital. So I knew I wanted to do private practice, but I also wanted to keep my options open. So I figured this was the way that I was going to go. So I got into school, made the decision that I was going to go to graduate school, get my PhD. I was hoping that all of this work that I had done so far would eventually pay off. And then I wound up starting all over again. And so I'm going to tell you the cons of being in this field when we come back from a quick sponsor break. So I reviewed the pros of being in this job. And I have to say, the pros are still there. All of those things that I listed, I still love about the job. I love being able to meet new people. I feel blessed that people trust me enough to let me into their life. And that's something that I never forget. And on the con side, it is a thankless job in a lot of ways. So let's go over some of the cons. Education-wise, this is not a degree for the faint of heart. So a PhD in psychology this is after a 4-year degree, by the way. You do another 4 years of academic work as well as clinical placements. So you're doing academic work. I had to do a research placement. We had to do clinical placements. That's 4 years. Then you do 1 full year of an internship, and then you have to complete your research dissertation. And that can take from a year, 6 months, whatever. It took me 2 years. So at the end of the day, when all was said and done, it took me 7 years to complete my PhD, which is just about as long as med school is. The reason I didn't go to med school was I like my sleep too much and I didn't want to be sleep deprived. But I might have gone back and I might have done an MD instead, looking back on it now. So the problem with taking another 7 years is a problem that doctors have, that other people have. You're looking at delaying gratification for a really long time. I had already missed so many parties, so many family events, so many experiences because I was studying, I was working hard, I had this particular goal. And make no mistake, I am not crying about it. I'm just saying I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I might have taken advantage of experiences when I could have earlier on. You have to delay your milestones, right? So it's very difficult for some people to get married, to have kids, when you're doing all of this rigorous coursework and writing a dissertation and having so many different demands on your time. So a lot of people have to do that. Financial challenges. I just want to review, because there was a study by Stony Brook University, which I think is amazing, what people do not know. And the study was by, I'm going to pronounce their name wrong. I'm so sorry if you ever hear this. It's Scotty, I think it is, Szkody, et al. In 2022, did a study at Stony Brook University, in my Long Island, yay, of 912 students. The average debt coming out of PhD program, graduate school in psychology, was $76,000, which is much lower than what I came out with, up to $500,000 in student loan debt. Think about that for a minute, the amount of time that it's going to take you to pay that off. In contrast with, most graduate programs tell you that you cannot work while you are doing the graduate program. They have, I know it's not really enforceable per se, but they want you to focus only on your training, only on your academic work, and they frown upon people having jobs. So the average salary of a student who is studying grad school in psychology is, do not pass out when you hear this, $1,500 per year. Year, not month, per year. So during those 4 years that I went to graduate school, I did not do much better than that per year. And I worked, we all did, because the school couldn't prevent you from working, and we all had to work. I worked 7 days a week. I counted on one time, my family laughed at me, I was working 7 different jobs, because every job was a few hours here, a few hours there. That's all that you could pick up. You can't do a job in psychology without a license. So I was working in a group home. I was doing, I was helping somebody with their dissertation research. Any odd jobs that I could pick up, I was doing. And it was absolutely exhausting. Having said that, what this study in Stony Brook University points out is everybody being under greater financial stress, as we also know from other podcasts I've done, leads to increases in anxiety, depression, poor sleep because you're financially worried all the time. Almost 1/5 of students in this study, in this population of 912 students, 1/5, almost 1/5, had a health crisis that they couldn't afford. And I remember when I think I was on internship, or maybe it was the year after internship, I also had a health crisis that I could not afford. And it wasn't a very expensive health crisis, but I had to go to my mom for that because I didn't have the finances for it. So I very much struggle with that piece, that I could have gotten a job right after I graduated and been financially stable. So I've now been a psychologist for 20 plus years, and there's still that, for some people, they still haven't paid off their student loans yet. Think about the interest on $500,000 in student loan debt. So I think that's something that you really have to consider. There was a time when I was in graduate school that we were told that going to graduate school for psychology was something that people only with rich parents could do. And I could absolutely see why. The amount of money that we spent on books, the not being able to work, it was very, very stressful. Having said that, all I'm going to say about that. So the financial challenges, which of course, the financial piece takes an emotional toll. There's also the emotional toll of training and learning and fearing making mistakes and saying the wrong thing and learning how to behave in a professional way, learning how to do the testing, how to do the diagnosis. Like any other job in the medical or mental health field, there are challenges that are involved with that. And also just the challenges of working with a very difficult patient population. Anybody who is a doctor who has seen or experienced their first patient die knows what that's like to experience a loss. We experience losses as well based on where we're working and where we're training. So I also experienced multiple losses of my patients from addiction or from AIDS when I was working very early in the AIDS population. It was very, very challenging. So you have to be able to balance that and know what your own coping and resources are so that you can draw upon them. After you get out of graduate school and you do all the stuff, if you want to go in private practice, people are not just going to be knocking on your door. There is all of the business aspect of running a practice that we are not taught in graduate school. There's no time for it, really. So anybody who is considering going to graduate school in psychology, make sure you take some classes in business, find a business mentor, find a mentor overall, someone who can really give you some good advice about marketing. So when I went to graduate school, the idea was that we were going to come out and we were going to make a pretty decent living. Then halfway through my schooling, the whole insurance industry changed. Managed care came in. At times, when I first graduated, I was making $8 a session. 8, not 80, $8 a session. And when I was still accepting insurance and was on insurance panels, I would get paid a $15 copay. Some insurance companies would pay $35 or $40 a session. So that was total, maybe $55, $60 for a session, which you cannot live on. You could see 40 patients a week and you still cannot live on that. And with the insurance, it would take them weeks to send you that money. So you're running up credit cards, perhaps, or borrowing from people, perhaps, or trying to leverage things because you're waiting for the payments from the insurance company to come through. And as a starting psychologist, most people do start off on insurance panels because that's the way you build your name and you build your reputation. Huge challenge. So you're coming out of graduate school, let's say $100,000 in graduate school debt, and you're getting paid $8 for a session. It doesn't work. The system is completely broken. And we need people who want to be in this field. Also, in addition to that, there's tons of paperwork, there's tons of phone calls, which we don't get reimbursed for. So time is being spent during the day doing that other work that needs to be done to take care of your patients, but we don't get paid for that. So as I came out of the field, started working in the field, I have now been in the field for, how long have I been in the field for? Almost 25 years. And I have to say, it has been an upward battle. Other people who I've spoken to, and not too many people want to talk about this, which is why I'm coming clean with what the field is really like, because people have this misconception that psychologists are incredibly wealthy. We live in mansions. We have no problems. We have definite work-life balance. I have never worked harder in my life than I have since I've been in this industry. I'm just being 100% honest. I still work 7 days a week. I enjoy it. Again, I want to be very clear here that this is not about complaining. This is about reality. I love my job. I couldn't think of doing anything else. So the fact that I work 7 days a week, it's not that big of deal to me. I enjoy the work. However, to take a vacation when you are a private practice person means also that you will not get paid that entire time that you are on vacation. So you have to also, bank on that. I did not take maternity leave for any of my kids. because I just couldn't. I wasn't able to do it. I didn't have the luxury of being able to take a significant amount of time off from work to be able to do some of the things that I wanted to do. So here's some other information. I told you about my starting job, which was $8 a session, which is pretty dramatic. But according to the APA, the American Psychological Association, in 2001, they did a survey, doctoral employment survey. This is the starting salary. This means you've gotten your PhD, you got your degree, you have your license if you're a clinical person and you're starting out in the field. If you're an assistant professor, starting salary is $44,614. If you're a researcher, it's a little bit more, $54,511. And if you're a clinical psychologist, which is what I am, your starting salary in 2001 was $48,386. So I graduated in 2000. So I had to do an extra year of experience to get my license. I forgot to add that part. So I am part of this 2001 group. Now, let's look at 2025. The starting salary for a clinical psychologist, according to psychologyjobs.com, starting salary is $54,440. So between 2001 and 2025, the salary has gone up approximately $6,000. That is it, people. How is someone with $100,000, $200,000 worth of debt who wants to start a family, who maybe is a single parent like I am, how are you supposed to survive on that? So it's the money doesn't keep up with the amount of time, the amount of experience that we have. And so this is one of the things that's really misunderstood about this field. Doctors also go to medical school. Lawyers obviously they go to law school for a much shorter period of time, but they come out with the expectation that they are going to make a salary that is commensurate with their education level. And we just don't. And the system is broken. In addition to all of this, we have licenses that we have to renew, continuing education credits we have to get, everything that every other field, lawyers, doctors, all of that, they have to do it. We have to do it, but the salary does not make up for all of that. So, having said that, why do I keep doing this? Why do I like this field so much? Why do I work 7 days a week? If I didn't have the intellectual stimulation and the flexibility to do some of the things that I never dreamed that I would be doing, I might have left the job. And there were plenty of times when I was in graduate school where I broke down in tears and I was like, I can't do this. I'm never going to be able to do this. So I'm giving you this as sort of a little bit of a heads up. Again, nobody talks about this. I don't know why, but I think we do need to talk about this, that this is something that is affecting the field. And this is why we have a lot of people who are mental health counselors who have 1-year degrees, 2-year degrees. Those jobs are really in demand because companies want to pay less. That's just the way it is. If you're going to be hired by a hospital, does a hospital want to pay a psychologist $100,000 or pay a starting mental health therapist $30,000? I mean, it's kind of like a no-brainer. I understand that. But there is a level of experience and credibility that you do get with the PhD. So why do I do it? Because I have the flexibility to do all of these cool things. I never thought I would be a podcaster. I never thought that I would be a writer and would have written books. Never would have thought that I would be a speaker, that I could talk about a variety of topics because I am just so stimulated by the field. So I'm still curious. I'm still learning. I'm still excited when a new person comes into my office. And I'm also committed to making treatment available to people who can't afford it. So I also see a lot of people for low fee, and that's my giving back to the field. That is why I'm still here. So in summary, I'm 50-50 about whether I would do it again. I still am. I doubt whether I would do it again Or I would do it, I think my decision is I would do it if I had known what I was getting into. And so here are the things that you need to know to get your mindset straight, to decide, are you ready to go into a commitment like this? And by the way, the training that I received was unparalleled. And I'm going to give a shout out to what used to be called Nassau County Medical Center, which is now Nassau University Medical Center in East Meadow, New York. That's where I did the bulk of my training. And I could not have been any happier with the training I got there. I got so much supervision. I was allowed to take on any experience that I wanted to take on. So one day it was like, hey, do you want to work with a client who has AIDS? And this was at the beginning of the AIDS crisis. And I'd be like, sure. Hey, do you want to go work in the prison today? Sure. When else are you going to have that experience to do any of those things? So if you are going that route, dig in and suck the life out of every experience that you are given. You will never get that amount of supervision and experience and opportunity again. You could tell, like, I'm still getting excited about this, which is why I'm still in this field. However, this is what you need to do to be successful in the field. And I'm going to say this, even for people who have been in the field for a while, these are my take-home points about things that I wish I had known earlier, which I'm kind of doing a little bit more of now. So I hope you don't make the same mistakes as me. Number one, find yourself a mentor. Get involved in a group, whether it's a psychology student group, whether it's early career psychologists. We didn't really have any of this when I was in graduate school. Find your people, because the journey can be very lonely and very isolating. You're spending a lot of time in books, a lot of times with your patients, not a lot of time to be with other people. So you really have to create that time for yourself. Number two, network, network, network. That's the marketing piece. Because of some of the ethics in our field, we can't market the same way that other people can market in other industries. I can't ask a patient for a testimonial. If someone wants to offer it or someone wants to write it, that's fine. I cannot solicit someone or ask someone to do it. So I can't call a patient and say, hey, do you want to write a review for me? We can't go out in the field and ask people, hey, are you looking for a therapist? I would love to be your therapist. So there are a lot of things that we just can't do that other people can do, but find a way to network with people who are in your field. Whether if you're in the addiction field, reach out to all of the addiction facilities, meet people, go to conferences, do all of the things to meet as many people as possible, be visible, and really show why people should refer to you. Make sure you have that experience, make sure your credentials are up to date, and that you always behave yourself in an ethical way so that anyone who refers someone to you knows that they are getting the best possible clinician. Budget. You gotta budget. I know talking about money is not really sexy. Had I known, I would have done much better during graduate school about really making sure I was set up financially to prepare for those life milestones, like taking off to have my kids or preparing for retirement or any of those other things. So make sure you have a good financial planner, someone who is experienced working in this field. Because again, there are a lot of stereotypes where someone sees doctor in front of your name and just assumes that you have, 3 cars, unlimited funds. It's not always the case. But set yourself up, because if you go the private practice route, it's going to be all on you to create a lifestyle that works for you. And having said that, make sure you have some fun. Make sure that you don't take yourself too seriously. Make sure that you reach out to people, you find your tribe, have the life that you want. I mapped out a life for me that I didn't even know that it was possible. And it's taken me many years to get to this point. Like I said before, a lot of tears. And I'm hoping that any nugget in this podcast has been helpful for you. And I think a lot of this can be translated into other fields. People don't know what they're getting into when they transition from college or graduate school to real life. And so here's some of the nitty gritty that maybe we should learn in school and we don't. So, and it is all about the mindset. If you have your mindset straight and you know what the expectations are and what you're getting into, you're so much more likely to have a good experience and to come out thriving. So thank you again for tuning in to From Mayhem to Mindset with Dr. Laura, and we will see you on the next episode. Thanks for joining us on From Mayhem to Mindset. If you found today's episode helpful, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave a 5-star review. It really helps spread the message. Want to dive deeper? Check out my book, Wisdom from the Universe, available now on Amazon. And if you're looking for a speaker to inspire and transform, I'd love to connect. Visit www.lauraellick.com to learn more. Remember, you don't have to just survive, you can thrive. See you next time.